Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something powerful. When a man loses a good woman, he doesn't just lose love, he loses his anchor, his biggest cheerleader, his safest place, and his greatest blessing. At first, he may think he can replace her, that life will move on as if nothing happened. But then comes the silence, the emptiness, the haunting memories of the way she believed in him, stood by him, and loved him in ways no one else ever will. And by the time he realizes the treasure he let slip through his fingers, she has already risen higher, shining brighter, and living a life so powerful without him that his regret becomes the loudest echo in his world. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that her worth is not defined by who chooses to stay, but by the strength she carries within herself. Too often women give everything they have, love, loyalty, time, compassion, believing that these are treasures that will be recognized, respected, and cherished. But sometimes, despite pouring your soul into someone, they fail to see the value standing right in front of them. And when that happens, it's not your loss, it's theirs. Because a good woman is a rarity, a force of nature, a blessing that can transform an entire life. And when a man loses that, he loses something he will never be able to replace. So when you hear the words, make him regret losing a good woman, don't think of revenge. Don't think of bitterness. Think of evolution. Think of rising so high, so gracefully, that the very man who thought he could walk away will one day look back and realize he let go of a treasure he will never find again. Your power lies not in chasing him, not in explaining your worth, not in proving yourself to someone who couldn't see it, but in becoming so undeniably radiant that your absence echoes louder than your presence ever did. The truth is, regret is not something you can force upon another. It's something they feel when they wake up to the reality of what they once had and lost. And the way you spark that realization is not through anger, but through growth. The woman who loved, who gave, who sacrificed becomes the woman who flourishes, who thrives, who shines in her own light. That transformation is what makes him regret. That transformation is what makes him wonder why he ever thought he could do better, when in reality he had already found the best. A good woman carries qualities that are unmatched. Patience when storms rage, understanding when mistakes are made, strength when life feels heavy, and love that heals wounds unseen. She becomes the quiet support, the loudest cheerleader, the anchor in chaos, and the fire that fuels ambition. And yet, sometimes these qualities are mistaken for weakness. They think she will always be there, she will always forgive, she will always wait. But when that good woman finally decides she deserves more, when she chooses to walk away and never look back, the reality hits harder than anything else. That's when regret creeps in. So how do you make him regret? You build yourself into the kind of woman who doesn't just survive heartbreak, but uses it as a stepping stone. You channel the pain into power. You stop asking, why wasn't I enough for him? And start declaring, I am more than enough for myself. You focus on your dreams, your passions, your purpose. You stop pouring energy into someone who failed to appreciate it and instead pour it into building a life so fulfilling that you don't even notice his absence anymore. Let him see you rise. Let him see you glow in your confidence, your independence, your unstoppable spirit. Let him watch you laugh without needing his jokes, smile without needing his validation, and win without needing his support. The day he sees you thriving without him is the day regret becomes his constant shadow. But understand this, you are not doing it for him. You are doing it for you. Regret is just the consequence of your resilience. You see, heartbreak has a way of either breaking you or shaping you. And when you choose the latter, when you decide to let it refine you instead of define you, you become a version of yourself that is unstoppable. That's when you turn heartbreak into fuel, rejection into redirection, and pain into power. Think about it. History has always shown us that those who underestimate a woman's worth eventually pay the price. They walk away thinking the grass is greener, only to realize too late that the grass is greener where you water it. And you, my dear, you watered his life. You gave it love, patience, effort. When he walks away from that, he doesn't just lose you, he loses the very essence of growth and beauty that you brought into his world. And when he sees you nurturing your own life, blooming brighter without him, that's when regret stings the hardest. There's an energy that surrounds a woman who knows her worth. It's magnetic, it's powerful, it's undeniable. She no longer seeks validation from broken places. She no longer waits for someone to recognize her value. She wears her confidence like a crown and walks into every room with the power of someone who knows she deserves the best. That kind of woman doesn't just make him regret. She makes the world stop and take notice. When he remembers the nights you stayed up just to listen to his fears, the times you stood by him when no one else did, the sacrifices you made silently without asking for credit, when those memories surface in his quiet moments, regret will follow him like a shadow. And the weight of it will only grow heavier when he realizes you're no longer reachable, no longer waiting, no longer his. But don't waste your energy thinking about when that day will come, because the real victory is not in his regret, but in your transformation. You become so focused on building your own empire, nurturing your own happiness, and celebrating your own journey, that his regret becomes nothing more than background noise. It's not your job to sit around waiting for karma. Your only job is to rise so high that he has to crane his neck just to catch a glimpse of you. A good woman is not defined by the man who failed to love her. She is defined by how she rises after being overlooked, how she shines after being underestimated, how she thrives after being left behind. That's the power you hold. That's the magic you carry. And when you embody that, regret becomes inevitable. Not because you wanted it, but because he created it for himself by losing you. So let him regret. Let him wonder. Let him replay the memories in his head. But you, don't look back. Don't shrink yourself to remind him of who you were. Expand yourself to remind yourself of who you are becoming. Because the moment you embrace that version of yourself, the woman who doesn't just survive but flourishes, that's the moment he realizes his biggest mistake. And that's when regret turns from a whisper into a roar he can never silence. The moment he loses a good woman, he loses more than just companionship. He loses a presence that can never be replicated. He may try to fill the void with distractions, with temporary faces, with shallow conversations, but none of it will ever measure up to the depth of what he once had. Because a good woman isn't just someone you date. She's someone who transforms your entire being. Her love carries weight. Her patience carries healing. Her laughter carries light. And when she's gone, the silence left behind is deafening. That silence, that absence, becomes a lesson he will live with, and it will come in waves, unexpected, unavoidable, and undeniable. The truth is, the world notices when a good woman walks away. She carries herself differently. She no longer bends to fit into places where she doesn't belong. She no longer lowers her standards to accommodate someone who couldn't rise to meet them. And that shift, that glow of self-respect, becomes magnetic. Suddenly, opportunities come her way, people admire her resilience, and her presence commands respect without her even trying. And the very man who once thought she would always be there begins to see her in a way he never did before. Not because she needed him to, but because he finally understands what he lost. Regret is a powerful thing. It doesn't always arrive immediately. Sometimes it lingers in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. It shows up in the middle of the night, in the stillness when distractions fade. It creeps in when he sees her laughing without him, when he hears about her success, when he notices the way others admire her. Regret is not loud at first. It's a whisper. But as her life expands without him, that whisper turns into an echo and eventually into a roar he cannot ignore. And the beauty of it is that she doesn't even have to try. A good woman doesn't chase revenge. She doesn't waste her time plotting ways to make him hurt. Instead, she focuses on her growth, her dreams, her evolution. She becomes the best version of herself because she understands that the greatest power lies not in proving him wrong, but in proving herself right. She knows she is capable, she knows she is deserving, she knows she is powerful, and when she starts to live in alignment with that truth, nothing can stop her. There is something undeniably attractive about a woman who chooses herself. Society often teaches women to sacrifice, to give, to prioritize others before themselves. And while giving is a strength, it becomes destructive when it is not reciprocated. But when she realizes that her love should never be begged for, that her worth should never be negotiated, and that her happiness should never be dependent on someone else, she becomes unstoppable. That realization is the very thing that makes him regret letting her go, because now he's watching her flourish in a world he no longer belongs to. Think about the power of transformation. A woman who was once quiet now speaks with authority. A woman who once compromised her dreams now chases them with fierce determination. A woman who once questioned her worth now wears her confidence like a second skin. That transformation is not fueled by anger, it's fueled by liberation. And it is in that transformation that his regret becomes unbearable, because he sees the version of her he always wanted, but he no longer has access to. Life has a way of teaching lessons through loss. Sometimes people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. They think love is replaceable, loyalty is common, kindness is ordinary. But when a good woman leaves, they come to realize that those qualities are rare, precious, and impossible to duplicate. He may meet others, but he will always compare. He may smile, but the smile won't reach his eyes. He may move forward, but part of him will always look back. That's the kind of regret that lingers. Not because she punished him, but because he punished himself by not valuing her when he had the chance. But here's the most important part. She doesn't wait for that regret to define her story. She writes her own narrative, one filled with passion, purpose, and power. She explores new opportunities, builds new connections, and creates a life that feels fulfilling. She realizes that the ending of one chapter was the beginning of another, and this new chapter is hers to write, free of compromise, free of doubt, free of holding herself back for someone else's comfort. And the more she thrives, the more his regret grows, because while she has moved forward, he is left behind replaying the memories of what once was. A good woman doesn't just walk away quietly. Her absence speaks louder than her words ever could. He remembers the little things, the way she cared about details no one else noticed, the way she could bring calm to chaos, the way her presence felt like home. Those are not things that can be replaced with surface-level connections. They are irreplaceable imprints on his life, and the weight of knowing he will never experience them again is the very essence of regret. What makes this journey so powerful is that she no longer defines herself by his choices. She realizes she is not the sum of his mistakes, but the reflection of her own resilience. She refuses to see herself as someone abandoned. Instead, she sees herself as someone freed. That mindset shift changes everything. Because once she understands that losing her was his loss and not hers, she gains a freedom that radiates in everything she does. That freedom, that energy is impossible to ignore, and he feels it even from a distance. Regret grows heavier with time. At first, he may feel relief, thinking he can do better, thinking she was replaceable. But months, even years later, when life shows him that what he had was rare, when he sees her building a life filled with success, joy, and peace, that's when the realization hits hardest, and by then, it's too late. Because a good woman, once she moves on, doesn't look back. She knows her worth too well to ever settle for being someone's second choice. Her strength lies in the way she chooses to rise. She could have stayed broken. She could have let heartbreak define her. She could have shrunk herself to fit into his vision of love. But instead, she chose to become more confident, more powerful, more radiant. That choice is what makes her unforgettable. And when someone is unforgettable, regret is inevitable. The irony is that he will often come back, not ways, physically, but in words, in apologies, in subtle attempts to reconnect. But by then, she has grown so much that his presence no longer holds the same weight. She has tasted freedom, she has embraced growth, she has found peace within herself, and nothing compares to that. His regret becomes his burden, not hers. His mistake becomes his lesson, not her responsibility. And that is the greatest power a good woman holds. Not the ability to make him regret through anger or revenge, but the ability to make him regret simply by thriving. Because nothing stings more than seeing the one you underestimated become everything you once dreamed of without needing you by their side. When he looks back, he won't remember the arguments or the times he thought you weren't enough. He will remember the moments when you believed in him more than he believed in himself. The way your eyes lit up when he spoke of his dreams. The way you pushed him to keep going when life weighed him down. He will remember the softness of your patience, the strength of your loyalty, the beauty of your resilience. And in those memories, regret will take root. Not because you asked for it, but because his own heart will remind him of the love he let slip through his fingers. A man who loses a good woman loses more than love. He loses a partner who could have walked with him through the darkest storms. He loses someone who saw not just who he was, but who he could become. He loses the safety of knowing that someone always had his back, that someone cared about the little things, that someone noticed details no one else would. That loss cannot be replaced because it isn't about just having someone by his side. It's about having the right person by his side. And when the right person is gone, every replacement feels hollow. That is why the best response to heartbreak is not to prove anything to him. It's to prove everything to yourself. The world is watching, but more importantly, you are watching yourself. Every choice you make, every step you take is an opportunity to rise higher than you were before. You may have been broken, but you are not destroyed. You may have been underestimated, but you are not finished. You may have been left, but you are not lost. You are still here, still powerful, still capable of creating a life so extraordinary that his absence becomes irrelevant. The beauty of being a good woman is that you know how to turn pain into fuel. Every tear becomes a lesson. Every rejection becomes redirection. Every heartbreak becomes a foundation for something greater. You learn to channel your emotions into action, your struggles into strength, your silence into wisdom. And that growth makes you unstoppable. You no longer beg for recognition. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer settle for less than what you deserve. Instead, you walk with purpose, you speak with authority, and you love yourself enough to never accept being undervalued again. The regret he feels will not come from watching you angry, bitter, or resentful. It will come from watching you happy without him. Nothing cuts deeper than seeing the person you once took for granted, thriving in a world where your presence is no longer needed. He will see you laugh freely, and it will remind him of the times he was the reason for that laughter. He will see you shine in your achievements, and it will remind him of the times you believed in his. He will see you loved and respected by others, and it will remind him of how he failed to do the same. That kind of regret doesn't fade. It lingers, it grows, it becomes a quiet torment that follows him no matter where he goes. But the beauty is you don't even notice, because while he's looking back, you are moving forward. You are no longer living in the shadows of his mistakes. You are basking in the light of your own evolution. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated less than you deserved, and you've stepped into the version of yourself that commands respect, love, and admiration simply by existing. That version of you does not chase, does not beg, does not cling. She attracts, she inspires, she sets standards that no one can ignore. There is something magnetic about a woman who has healed. She no longer carries desperation in her voice or doubt in her eyes. She carries certainty. Certainty in her worth, certainty in her path, certainty in her future. That certainty is more powerful than anything else because it is unshakable. And when he sees that, when he realizes that the woman who once gave him everything is now giving herself the world, regret will consume him in ways words cannot describe. The most powerful revenge is not revenge at all. It's peace. It's waking up in the morning with a smile on your face because you are proud of the life you are building. It's walking through the day with confidence because you know you are enough. It's resting at night with gratitude because you no longer waste your energy on someone who couldn't see your value. That peace is priceless. And that peace is what makes him regret losing you. Because while he is unsettled, you are grounded. While he is searching, you are fulfilled. While he is haunted by the past, you are thriving in the present. Never underestimate the ripple effect of your growth. Every time you choose to invest in yourself, every time you choose to chase your dreams, every time you choose to love yourself deeper, you create a life that speaks louder than words ever could. And that life becomes a reminder to him of the woman he lost. He may try to silence it, to ignore it, to bury it, but the truth always has a way of resurfacing. And when it does, regret will tighten its grip on him. But don't wait for that moment. Don't live for that day. Live for today, for this moment, for This chapter you are writing right now. Fill your life with experiences that light up your soul. Surround yourself with people who see your worth without needing to be convinced. Create opportunities that make you proud of the woman you are becoming. When you do that, regret is no longer your concern. It is his burden to carry, his lesson to learn, his reality to face. And understand this, your value was never diminished just because someone failed to recognize it. Diamonds remain diamonds whether they are placed in the spotlight or left in the dark. Their worth doesn't change, their brilliance doesn't fade, their rarity doesn't disappear. You are that diamond. And the moment you realize that, you stop asking why someone let you go and start asking why you ever thought their inability to see your shine was your fault. That shift in perspective changes everything. Because once you embrace your worth, you begin to attract people, opportunities, and experiences that align with it. You no longer settle for halfway love, halfway effort, halfway respect. You demand the fullness of what you deserve, not through arrogance, but through certainty. And that certainty is magnetic. It draws the right people in and pushes the wrong people out. And when he sees that, when he realizes he no longer fits into your world, regret will weigh on him heavier than ever before. A good woman never truly loses. She either wins love that is worthy of her, or she gains wisdom that elevates her. Either way, she grows, she evolves, she rises. And that rise is unstoppable. It is in that rise that regret is born, not because she wanted it, but because he created it by failing to see what was right in front of him. And as she continues to rise, that regret becomes a permanent reminder of the treasure he lost, a treasure he can never reclaim. When she steps into that version of herself that knows her worth beyond question, the entire energy around her shifts. She no longer moves through the world apologizing for existing, shrinking herself so others feel more comfortable, or dimming her light so it doesn't outshine someone else's insecurities. She embraces her power, her beauty, her intelligence, her compassion, and she allows it to flow unapologetically. That kind of presence cannot be ignored. It is commanding without trying, radiant without forcing, magnetic without intention. And when he sees her stand in that truth, he will feel the weight of the moment he let her go. There's a reason why people say you don't know what you have until it's gone. The absence of something valuable always highlights its worth. The silence where her voice once was, the emptiness where her support once stood, the void where her love once existed, all of it serves as a mirror reflecting what he lost. And as life tests him, as challenges arise, he will long for the stability she once provided, the encouragement she once gave, the comfort she once brought. But by then, she has outgrown the space where he left her, and she is no longer waiting for him to return. The world rewards women who decide to choose themselves. It rewards them with freedom, opportunities, and a strength they never knew they had. Every step she takes forward, every success she achieves, every smile she wears becomes proof of her resilience. And with each milestone she reaches, his regret deepens. Not because she wanted it to, but because he cannot escape the reality that she is flourishing without him. That realization is the heaviest regret of all, the realization that someone can live not just without you, but better without you. The journey of a good woman after heartbreak is one of rediscovery. She begins to ask herself questions she once neglected. What do I want? What makes me feel alive? What dreams have I been putting on hold? And as she answers those questions, she starts to build a life that reflects her own desires instead of revolving around someone else's. She takes trips he once postponed, she pursues passions she once buried, she invests in herself in ways she never thought possible. And as she grows into this new version of herself, she becomes a vision of strength and independence that no one can overlook. The irony is that the very qualities he took for granted are the ones others admire the most. Her kindness, her empathy, her ability to love deeply, those are the qualities that make her unforgettable. But now, paired with self-respect, boundaries, and a stronger sense of self, she becomes unstoppable. She no longer gives blindly, she gives wisely. She no longer tolerates disrespect. She commands dignity. She no longer waits for someone else to validate her. She validates herself. And when he witnesses that transformation, regret becomes unavoidable. But regret is not her concern. Her concern is growth, healing, and becoming whole again. She learns to find joy in her solitude, to celebrate her independence, to cherish her own company. She begins to see that love does not always have to come from someone else. It can come from within. She learns to nurture herself, to encourage herself, to uplift herself. That self-love becomes her shield and her weapon, protecting her from those who would take her for granted and guiding her toward those who will value her fully. And make no mistake, when she embodies that kind of energy, the universe responds. New doors open, new people arrive, new opportunities unfold. Suddenly she is surrounded by people who appreciate her essence, who respect her boundaries, who uplift her instead of dragging her down. She no longer has to fight for a seat at the table because she builds her own. She no longer has to prove her worth because her worth is undeniable. She no longer has to beg to be chosen because she already chooses herself every single day. Regret thrives in the shadows of comparison. As he watches her glow, as he sees her loved and valued by others, as he witnesses her success from a distance, he cannot help but compare what he had to what he has now. And no matter how hard he tries, the comparison will never measure up. Because no one else can replicate the way a good woman loves, supports, and builds. And once she is gone, that absence becomes a permanent reminder of what he can never get back. The most powerful moment comes when she no longer cares about whether he regrets losing her. Because by then, she has evolved so far beyond the relationship that his regret becomes irrelevant. Her life is not centered on his mistakes. It is centered on her victories. His absence is not her focus. Her presence is. She realizes that the greatest revenge is not making him regret. It's becoming so fulfilled, so content, so happy that his regret doesn't even cross her mind. A good woman's worth is not diminished by someone failing to see it. Just as the sun doesn't stop shining when clouds cover it, her value doesn't fade just because someone was blind to it. She continues to shine, and when the clouds clear, the brilliance of her light is undeniable. He may realize too late that he had the sun in his life, but she has already risen into a new day, shining brighter than ever. There is a quiet dignity in walking away without bitterness. It shows strength beyond measure, because it's easy to be consumed by anger, easy to dwell on pain, easy to crave revenge. But to rise above it, to keep your heart soft, to keep your spirit open, that is true power. That is what separates a good woman from the rest. She refuses to let his actions harden her. She refuses to let his choices define her. She refuses to let his absence destroy her. Instead, she chooses grace, and grace is unforgettable. And that grace is exactly what makes him regret. Because regret is not just about losing love. It's about losing the rare kind of soul who could love without conditions, forgive without resentment, and give without expecting anything in return. When he realizes that he had that and lost it, he will understand the gravity of his mistake. But by then, she has already written a new story, one where she is no longer the supporting character in someone else's life, but the lead in her own. She doesn't wait for closure, because closure is something she gives herself. She doesn't wait for apologies, because apologies do not rebuild what has already been broken. She doesn't wait for him to realize her worth, because she has already realized it herself. That independence, that certainty, that unshakable self-belief is what propels her forward. And while he looks back with regret, she walks forward with pride. This is the cycle of losing a good woman. At first, he underestimates her, thinking she will always be there. Then he takes her for granted, believing her love will never run out. But when she finally leaves, when she finally decides she deserves more, the reality sets in. And as she grows stronger, brighter, happier, his regret grows heavier, darker, deeper. That is the inevitable consequence of losing someone irreplaceable. And she, in her strength, in her grace, in her evolution, doesn't look back. Because she knows her future is far more important than his regret. She knows her happiness is far more valuable than his lessons. She knows her life is far too precious to be defined by what he failed to see. So she keeps moving, she keeps shining, she keeps rising, and with every step she takes forward, his regret becomes the echo of a past that can never return.